Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. And I wanted to say thank you to every fan of the show, or even anyone that has tuned into the show or just checked out the show, just because these last two episodes have taken a little extra time to get not just finished with editing process, but also with releasing and also with some marketing, just because there's been a lot going on in this host's life within the last month or so. So as I'm recording this right now, it is about early July. So previously in June, I had my dad's celebration of life, and then had a wedding to go to with my partner, and then the last 2 weeks were just moving and also unpacking and also unpacking and unpacking. So that whole process. So it took a little longer to get Nick Newcombs and this episode, Kevin Corbin. So Kevin, if you're listening to this or watching this, thank you for your patience. I know it's we did the interview a little bit ago, but everything, since my dad's passing, has kind of happened in a very quick pace, or everything just got filled. Every moment of my days were filled with, the normal grieving processes, the things you go through as you lose a parent and or loved one. So, it settled into the new place. So first intro in the new studio, which you really can't tell much of what it is because, the background if you're watching, the background looks pretty much the same than as it was before. But nonetheless, the studio is getting almost done, so I'm very excited to kind of hit the ground running and, finish up these last couple of interviews I've did before my all the craziness of the summer hit, and then embark on some new interviews. But we're here to talk about Kevin. Kevin, at first, when I reached out to him, I was, a little bit of our high school moments, our high school times did kind of cut through my mind in terms of he was one of the more well-liked people, super friendly, super nice, good-looking dude. And I never saw myself as one of his equals when we both did sports. We both, in some social circles, we were the same people, but I had a hard time really seeing myself to kind of his equal. So just getting to talk with him, just getting to reacclimate myself in his life. That was fun. It was good because I could tell that, in the early parts of every interview I've done so far, it's a little awkward, kind of feeling the grounds out and then proceeding onwards. And then, it's just Kevin is he is just as I remembered him in terms of always smiling, laughing, and always having a good story to tell. But then he has those moments that he showed in this interview that he can be serious and that he can talk about some things that are very important to him. So that being said, I don't want to talk too much about it just because this is Kevin's episode and I want you all to check it out. So if this is your first time checking out the Keoni Chats podcast show, I say welcome. All shows are announced over social media, so you can follow the show on KC Media 13 on Instagram and Twitter, and then you can also follow on Facebook under Conlu K Media. So in the lower right-hand tag, which also I realized in Nick's episode, I forgot to add that, so cool. There's a tag for my website, keoniconlu.com, keoniconlu.com. That is my website where I just throw all of my creative stuff on for anyone that is interested in looking at. So outside of just the podcast, I do some blogs. So there was the NFL mock draft blog. So there was only one of those. That's the most recent one I've written. As we kind of march towards the second half of 2022, the DC Animated Universe review series is starting to pick up some steam. So it's been it's not super mainstream, the announcements of the shows. So it's kind of hard to do. I got to put some time into researching and finding out more about each of these movies I'm hearing about. And one of the more well-known ones is DC Super Pets, which I'm very excited to watch, even though my partner is like, it's animated and it seems very kid friendly. I'm like, that's okay. It's all right. I'll go enjoy it, or we'll enjoy it and we'll have a good time. But that and also some photos. So check it out. I believe you can follow the website, and I would be very appreciative of that. And also, if you enjoy the show, what really helps me out, other than finding a new routine in terms of now that everything's settled in, is just spreading the news of the show. I know it's a lot of word of mouth because it's my social media poll isn't great, but it's constant. When I can be constant. So, it's drop a review on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts, and that helps me. That helps me figure out how I can be better, or it helps me figure out what I'm doing good at. So I'd really appreciate those as well. So other than following social medias, you can also find the show on YouTube. So if you want to search Keoni Chats, I put the name and all of the titles, so that should be nice and easy to find. So however you are checking out this episode on whichever platform you prefer, or if you are watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Kevin Corbin. My earliest memory of you is, we went to high school together, and you tried out for football, and I vaguely remember because again that was like close to probably 10 to 15 years ago, right?
Yeah. Time is flying, man. Yeah.
Thank
To
God.
2014, I think it happened. Yeah.
Where I just remember like watching you because you were out for quarterback, and then you were kind of scrambling around, doing all these things, and it was just like, oh, we could be pretty diverse this year. And then unfortunately, your knee kind of gave out. What do you remember about that day?
Yeah. Quite a bit. It was certainly a freak accident at the core. I think, we were doing an inter team scrimmage. So,
Mhm.
that was kind of unfortunate as well. But obviously, transition. I should have gone to West. You transition over the Sunset. Excited to, play with you guys. And just again, a freak accident where technically, the play, a horse collar tackle, which, I don't think at that point, I was trying to think about this, if in the NFL that was a flag. I know it
Yeah,
is now,
yeah.
but it was just, again, something unfortunate. Again, individual certainly didn't mean it, but it was planting at the same time as, being horse crawled down, and knee couldn't take it. Yep. And,
Mm.
the crazy thing about that was it, still sounds bad, but it definitely just was a dislocation. Nothing tore, which really allowed me to bounce back for basketball season, that next winter.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate there, but had some great doctors, got me through it. Laying on the field, of course, whole game stopped. I in a weird way, I felt bad. I was like, oh guys, you gotta go watch me get carted off. But it was obviously painful, but it's just a freak accident. You know what I mean? Just planting at that point, and again, nothing. Blame no one. It's just part of football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do remember like for a good portion of the game or a good portion of that day, we did kind of just wait and saw what was going to happen. Went ambulance, and then it got to the point where like, okay, well, we got to finish this scrimmage out, so we just second half the field. Um, but yeah, man, I just remember like that conversion to basketball. It's like, okay, that makes sense because it is two different animals, basketball and football. Did you ever miss it? Did you ever like kind of miss that kind of grind or that kind of like, because it's a different kind of accolades, really.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, football was my first love, you know what I mean, in terms of sports. So it was tough to walk away just understanding where, hey, what's my, probability of going, places with football, how to take that real sober look at it. But again, it's first love, still, of course, love watching it and playing it whenever I can. But different, certainly, sports in general, similar mentality, but switching to basketball, tactically a little bit different. Not certainly not as physical, but miss the guy that, you guys still, did your thing, you know what I mean, as much as you could, through the season. And obviously Sunset, I felt we had a lot of guys picked off, right? We went to other
Oh yeah,
schools and,
yeah.
did it, you know what I mean? And we had a lot of talent, but none of it all came together. I always think about that. If we had all the guys who could have played at Sunset, play, we probably been a lot better, but
Yeah,
here's what it is.
yeah. It got to the point even to like this day because I went to you and I both went to University of Oregon. We're both back in the Portland area, where if I hear like, oh yeah, I went to like Westview, I went to Jesuit, I'm like, ugh, wait a minute, that was like 15 years ago. Why am I?
Yeah. Exactly.
So then when you started doing basketball, was that something you always did as a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely was my, kind of secondary sport, which became the primary. Certainly my dad, obviously hoops growing up. He was not a football player. So, it came, I don't want to say naturally, but yeah, it did. It was a smooth transition. Obviously, a lot of those guys we played with. So, yeah, it was, I think that, we ended up, fourth, in our senior year, in state, which, best we did, obviously, going up against the Westviews, the Jesuits of the world. That was, it was good, of course, to win and win something there. It was a good time.
Yeah. Have you kept up with any of the former basketball player? Can I call them basketballers? Because it just
Yeah, let's do it.
it's just kind of smooth. Have you kept up with any of them?
I have, yeah. I mean, those are my best friends. The Holtons. Yeah, a lot of those guys I see, often, whether it be at a Blazer game or, of course, hanging out. So most of which are, all in the Portland area still. So I was the one who left, I guess, came back, and it was good to connect with them all again.
Prodigal son comes back.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I we both know James Arthur or Jimmy Arthur. And when I talked with him, I did see him also pop up on your Instagram. I know it was he, EJ Atkins, yourself, and EJ was only with at Sunset for like the first like freshman sophomore-ish year.
Right.
You guys were very tight, and for you guys to still see each other at least within the let's say the last 5 years, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I lived with James for a little bit after college. So we lived together. A couple other guys went to Westview. We all lived in like the Bethany area in a townhome. It was right after I graduated from U of O. Was in banking. And so yeah, we lived together. And he's still very, very close. He moved to Vegas for a bit. Now he's back in Portland or Oregon in general as well. So we all seem to come home one way or another. It's tough to, leave family and leave, what we have here in Oregon. So, but yeah, we all stay close.
Yeah, it's I just remember when I interviewed EJ, he was kind of a little bit after Jimmy or James. Again, I knew him when I was a kid, so I always called him Jimmy. So that's why I'm
right.
like, so
exactly.
So, James, if you hear this and you're getting frustrated, I apologize. Yeah, I remember interviewing EJ, and I was just like, when he said that, like, oh, he makes commitments to stick with his friends, and it's like, it kind of shake me a little bit because I know sometimes I can get tunnel vision when it comes to like, let's say this podcast, for example, and then kind of tune out other people. So, with your field of like, getting the degree in economics and also in banking, that can take up all your time. How do you kind of manage that? Also, how do you manage be able to like keep yourself checked in at work, but also be like, oh wait, I have friends, I have people, I need to make sure they're still doing okay.
Absolutely, yeah, it's important. I think social media, at the core. I think that obviously allows us to stay connected, and really what it's for. Keeping up, people posting things. Oh, that's where they are. That's where they are now. So that more or less, whether it be good or bad, what it is, social media has been a vessel to stay connected. But then, yeah, I mean, outside of that, it's about just understanding what's important, in life. That hey, we can, get caught up in, some of what we're doing, how we're making money, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's people, who make, life what it is. So just, getting on your phone, texting people when they come to your mind. I have a lot of guys who do that to me. It really, puts on my mind to do it back. Yeah, I think, obviously first and foremost is just, popping on Instagram, seeing what people are doing.
Yeah. I tend to even, and I say in high school, my overthinkingness was always kind of a little more rampant than it is now because I practice vocalizing it. But I just remember like if let's say it's with, I usually use an example. It's like, oh, I talked with Kevin. I kind of want to see if he would talk to me first. And then next, I don't talk to them for like, let's say a couple months. I'm like, are we still good? Are we good? Are we still good friends? I don't know. I don't know. Do you ever experience anything like that? Like overthinking this, or just like, because just from everything I've seen, because, with my research process on you, it's
Mhm.
it's been more of like, oh, okay, he's outgoing. I never caught any kind of inclination of like, anxieties or anything like that.
Mhm. No, I think that, it always helps just to ask, right? Just be straight up. Hey, is there, what's going on? How are you? And if if you see reciprocation, then okay, engage. But I think yeah, I, you know, don't feel like there's anyone who I wouldn't talk to again, if that makes sense in my
Yeah.
mind. Anyone who, yeah, I think, like you said, it's on us to do a better job of being proactive and reaching out. And, but again, I think even going back to all the guys we have from high school, it just was lifelong connections. You know what I mean? I think
Hmm.
we can see each other and connect at any point. Guys like I think about CJ and Tony, those guys who it's been a while since I've really talked to them, but I know, we pick right up right where we left off. You know what I mean? So I think that's just part of creating those bonds when you're younger. Just going through the same things. In terms of, ever feeling like, hey, maybe someone doesn't want to talk to me anymore. I don't know. I always just ask, if I'm
Yeah.
ever curious, how you doing? And if I don't get anything back, then okay, maybe I have my answer there, but
Yeah.
that makes sense.
That's pretty brave too. To like just kind of cast your net out there and see what happens. And excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't have COVID. I don't have COVID. I swear. It's just
I know, right?
oh, oh man. Yeah, it's just allergies season is creeping up too. So
It is back.
it's weird to like sneeze in public and be like, I'm good.
Right.
Good. Good. But yeah, okay, so going back, what was I lost it. But
Reconnections.
yeah,
Yeah.
reconnections. Yes. See, now you're hosting the show. But yeah, it's like, in this journey of podcasting, I've reconnected with yourself. I got
Yeah.
EJ, I got James, and then I tell myself, okay, I'm gonna follow up with them. I'm gonna check in with them, and then when in like let's say 2 weeks from now, just see how they're doing. That 2 weeks pass, I'm just like, oh crap, crap.
Yeah. I think it's just having the right mindset on both sides, that, just understanding people get busy, right? But also people make time for what's important for them. That's kind of another aspect to think about. But
Mhm.
I just, again, like I said, like social media has allowed us to kind of peek into people's lives without really asking them a bit. So kind of feels not cheating, but it's almost like, okay, I kind of basically know what they're up to, or, maybe they're, traveling and, not available. But
Mhm.
outside of that, like you mentioned, yeah, I think that I've always, walked through life. I've always just said, hey, if I have a question about something, just ask it. You know what I mean? And then, hopefully I get my answer. So yeah, just
Mhm.
asking guys, hey, how you doing? And no, nothing back, then okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But
I do remember where I left off. So yeah, the bravery of asking that question of like, are we good? What's going on? Because I know I had anytime to this day, if I need to like talk to my brother and I know we have a little bit of a conflict going on, it's like
mm-hmm.
I gotta practice that conversation in my head first. I gotta make sure like if he responds this, I gotta respond to that. Gotta do this, and that. And next thing you know, I haven't even had the conversation with him. So
Right.
I mean, did you get this from your mom or your dad as far as like this like kind of like bravery slash just like I'm just gonna do it, or is this something kind of developed in as you got older?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, I come from a bigger family, I mean, 5 kids. So I think that just being around a lot of people, really having to speak up, only for myself, but just meeting so many different people has, I think, led to just my comfortability with just, meeting new people or the unknown, or reaching out, as well. But and then more or less, yeah, my career path has kind of caused me to, have to talk to people all the time, and just whether I want to or not. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think, but yeah, my mom is one to talk. Don't shy away from conversation, so maybe definitely a little bit from her. And my dad also, very social guy, so probably both
Yeah,
different parents. Yeah.
yeah. And so you have 5 siblings. Is that what you're saying?
So 4 siblings, 5
Oh,
of us
you're
total.
you're
Yep.
fifth. Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Youngest, oldest, middle.
Second to youngest, with
Uh,
4 girls. I'm the only boy, so I don't know if you knew
oh,
that, actually.
I didn't find much on your family, so a lot of it was
Okay.
just like your travels and whatnot. So
Yeah.
this is some okay. So being what's the youngest doing? What's the youngest and what's the oldest? What are they up to?
Yeah. So actually, everyone now is back in the Portland area. That
Uh,
wasn't the case for a number of years. We were all kind of around the country, but yeah. So youngest, she went to Sunset. You may, Bridget. She was a grade younger than us, but
mm,
about 2 years younger in age. So she is, yeah, here in Portland. She works for the IRS now, and doing her thing. So professional job, and living on her own, just right over near the Sylvan area. But the youngest, so she's funny, I lived in San Diego for a bit, but she's been back and forth from San Diego now. I think she's thinking about moving there as well. But
mm.
and the oldest, yeah, so there's like a 15-year gap between the oldest and the youngest. So oldest is, yeah, now here in Portland. She works in it's like human services. Has her daughter, my niece. So they're over in Beaverton. Yeah, everyone's working, healthy. One of my sisters just had her second baby, so now an uncle of three total in the
Ooh,
family. So yeah, a lot of little
dang,
ones. But
man.
yeah.
That's that's gotta be crazy to like, because my brother, it's just my brother and I, and
Mhm.
he kind of always jokes around. He's like, "Hey, you gotta give our parents grandkids." I was like, "Hey, okay, time out, time out."
Right.
But just being like the second youngest in that, yeah, that 15-year gap. Holy smokes,
Yeah.
that's how did you connect with her as you're kind of like growing up? Because that sounds difficult.
And it was. I mean, I think just by sheer age, so like, even when my family moved from Boston, where we're from, to Oregon, she stayed behind because she was old enough to do that.
Mm,
So, at that point, there was quite a number of years where, yeah, we just simply did not live together, but certainly always kept in touch. So, it can be hard, of course, but family is family. And so, obviously connecting at times, through holidays or whatnot, but always, knowing where she's at in life and what she's doing. Yeah, it was tough just to connect on some levels. Always certainly looked up to her in a lot of ways. Just, she was, the oldest and had to go through everything first. But yeah, my mom always said like she wasn't planning for my sister and I, the two youngest. So it happened, and here we are. But yeah.
oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and it's also, you get to kind of share these life experiences with her now. So examples like, my mom, or a couple episodes ago, was a childhood friend that grew up with my brother. And then I was talking with my mom. I was like, "Oh, did you listen to the episode?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was kind of cool because uh, she only saw him as like a kid, and then hearing the
Hmm.
episodes, like, oh, now he's going through all these adult experiences. I can relate with them more." Did
Hmm.
you feel like that with your eldest sibling? Just like, oh, remember? Did you go through this at my age? Did you go through that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that it's almost inevitable, right? We as humans kind of go through a lot of the same things, and being in the same family, of course, the roots are there. But I think like probably the biggest difference was, yeah, just her being a girl and me being a boy. So there's obviously some different things we go through,
Sure.
but ultimately it's just some of the, yeah. I mean, she went to university, moved on, got her first professional jobs, all those things that I leaned on her just for insight, and really
Hmm.
just whether it was even spoken or not, it was just maybe through observation things she would do. She had her first kid and just how she became a mom is really it was inspiring to see her mature and progress for sure.
Yeah. And then, so I like to joke when I hear like my friends are, example for you, like let's say, oh, I found out Kevin's as a vice president at Personal Capital. I could use that sometime down the road. If I find out my friend is in the legal, it's like, oh, if I screw up, I could use that.
Right.
Your youngest is in the IRS. That's
Yeah. Right.
that alone. I'm just like, what is
Right.
going on here?
I know I can't evade my taxes, but she'll help out. Yeah. So she's been doing that for, yeah, maybe 5 or so years. So no.
Nice. So, did
Yeah.
it seem like something within the higher echelons, maybe? Because I mean, not to disrespect anyone that's in customer service, but it does feel
Hmm.
like kind of close to like middle or bottom of the barrel, where like you
Hmm.
don't have a set schedule. Did you
Hmm.
ever, was it kind of like a family theme that everyone's gonna kind of get those like middle to higher tier jobs where like you can just work your Monday through Fridays, get your weekends off, be able to have a more comfortable living? Um, yeah, because customer service, I mean, you and I have both done that to some degree. It's
Hmm.
like
Right.
that's a grind.
It is, yeah. People are always not so nice, but yeah, in terms of like career path wise, I think yeah, both my parents were always career focused. I think from the beginning, it was kind of always expected, not only go to college, but also yeah, get a professional job. That was always, certainly an expectation. Understand, we weren't going to be able to rely on parents by any means. So, yeah, I think it's just the way, also, yeah, what we saw from our parents. I mean, them doing it, really no other, model, if you will, other than, you get a job and you
Mhm.
work. But you're right. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and certainly working in customer service per se, builds character, right? Like a lot of things do. And getting to understand, because everything's a people business regardless of where you're at. I mean, even if you're all the way in IT, you still have to think about people in some way or work with
True.
people. But yeah, definitely from my parents.
Yeah. And then,
You know.
because I just remember, my brother is 2 degrees and he got to IT. He's able to find all these jobs where he can get so much money. I had to kind of
Mm-hmm.
grind in the customer service a
Mm-hmm.
little bit longer, but I just remember it became kind of like a competition or just kind of like some sort of hierarchy can hang over my head. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, how many degrees do you have? One? Oh, I have two. Stop talking. I'm like,
I hear you. Yeah.
any kind of sibling competitions and sibling rivalries when it comes to
Not
careers?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Not really. I think we're all just very supportive of each other. Just understand that hey, life is hard already. You know what I mean? Don't want to necessarily put any pressure on someone unnecessarily. But I think that yeah, we're just all pretty supportive of each other, which I appreciate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't take that for granted. So yeah, we've all kind of had our different grinds at different points. Not always working, maybe the 9 to 5 jobs, professional jobs. So just all proud of where each other are at. So.
Wow. Okay. I mean, a question I was gonna ask later on or earlier was like, oh, obviously wrestling matches got some like comes from some sort of like collision of the Corbin siblings, but it's like nope.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because it's only sisters for me. I mean, maybe amongst them a little bit, but really, I
Uh,
never really felt that. You know what I mean? Because yeah, just simply just being a guy. I guess what it
true.
comes down to. I just approach them maybe a little bit differently than I would a brother. But so
Yeah.
always, I think that's why I had a lot of my good guy friends, including yourself, just through high school that really acted as my brothers. You know what I mean? And so that's really where that came from, that side. But yeah,
Nice.
not necessarily most of my siblings.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Now, so yeah, you mentioned earlier that you and I both went to University of Oregon. I believe you were more in the business school. I was more in the journalism school. Um, now, have you gone back to the campus since for any kind of duck games or whatnot? Because a lot has changed.
Yeah. Honestly, the last time I was there may have been 2016. So it's been a while, man. Yeah, I haven't.
Wow.
I've heard new track, a lot of new buildings.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I don't like that, right? Moving away 4 years to San Diego kind of put that on hold a little bit. But obviously want to get, and then COVID hitting, not really be able to go to a duck game per se at that point. But yeah, I need to get back down there certainly for this upcoming football season,
Yeah.
basketball as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went this past year for some football games, and I remember parking next to the new Hayward Field and
Mm-hmm.
seeing it from afar. You're like, this feels like it's like CGI. This is not real. And then you start walking
Yeah.
closer, you're like, holy crap, this is all real. But yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you because so your last time at University of Oregon was I believe my graduating year because I graduated in 2016.
Okay.
Um, Taylor's. How'd you feel about them?
Oh,
Many
yeah.
many thoughts, but what were some of your thoughts when you heard that place closed down?
Yeah, I mean, it was, of course, it was sad, right? I mean, that was the one of the staples of the bar scene.
Mm.
I believe, I don't know if that was the very first bar. I was good, I didn't go before I was 21. So right when I was 21, I think it may have been the first bar I went to.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, obviously a lot of memories, maybe a lot of, not so much memories from being there, not so many memories, but yeah, it was sad. I mean, who knows? I don't know the specifics of whether it was just kind of just cost. They weren't really, of course, COVID hit a lot of businesses, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was a staple, and it's sad to see it go.
Yeah, I remember. So I worked at the Qdoba just a couple stores down, and
Hmm.
on a holiday, on a Halloween, it was I was able to get off at midnight. I was like, "Sweet, this is great. I'm gonna just run up the street to Taylor's." And I remember like waiting in line. I was also so. Did you ever watch The Simpsons?
Oh yeah.
I was Duff Man. So
Oh, nice. Yeah.
so I tried working out. I went on a diet. I was like, I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna look great. And then for people that don't know, when you're working out and you're dieting and then you ingest a lot of alcohol, it's not a good recipe. So I just remember going in there, it was packed. It was like the night scene of the Matrix, you know, the little caves.
Yep.
Um, but I was like, God, this is insane. I was like, man, like, did you have
Yeah.
any experiences like that, or it's just like a rave basically at Taylor's?
Absolutely. Yeah. It felt like you didn't even need to go to a club. You know what I mean? It was the club of Eugene in a way. Yeah, kind of a rite of passage, if you will. It felt like, you had to have some fun nights there. It's hard not to, where the dance floor is going and drinks are
Sure.
flowing. And yeah, it definitely, part of, yeah, you think back to, everyone says, oh, you're going to miss your college years. You always heard that when you're in college, you're going to miss it. And you kind of get out thinking, adult life, I want to get, make money, blah, blah, blah. But, you always do miss it. Yeah. And just those
Yeah.
times are more or less carefree. So,
Yeah. So tell me more about CEO Network, or I'm sorry, hashtag CEO Network. So
yeah, it's trending, trending. No, it was honestly, it was a great experience to kind of complement just being on campus in general. Really the basis of it was, give, students of color just really a platform, if you will, opportunity, cohort of,
mm,
like-minded people who, focus on business. And I still remember, I think it was orientation, uh, you know, first time or second day I was on campus where, Taya Butler, who ran the group, sat down, looked at, my, I guess we'll call it more or less a resume at that point, and said, hey, you look like someone who should be in this program, and I'm starting this cohort, and really, I was, yeah, part of that first group, which was exciting, just to see something grow that, again, as people of color, just, making sure we were, heard, you know what I mean, in a lot
mhm.
of ways, and it just put us in front of certain people that otherwise we wouldn't have met. And so it was a great experience.
Nice. Yeah, I remember seeing some photos that you took, and it just looked like a great. I mean, that was all what Yo is, just
Mm-hmm.
networking, networking, networking.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, I remember journalism school wise, again, different fields, but the same school.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, all these high end people that are in ESPN, or have
Mm-hmm.
worked for Pac-12, coming in and doing some trainings and whatnot. I was just like, this is super cool. But I
Mm-hmm.
was also pretty early. Like, I jumped into the field late. Was there any kind of missed opportunities you wish you could redo?
Hmm. That's a good question. I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is yes, but in terms of what comes to mind, I mean, I think that, and it's funny because it came on the scene a little bit later, was that, University of Oregon, when we were there, didn't necessarily have a specific like sports product management
Hmm.
degree. And now they do actually. They have a master's program, which like I think will end up being like you and I senior year. They just started it. Of course, like you can go the sports marketing route, but that doesn't necessarily put you in place to do like more product focused, surrounding sports. So that, it's even still a program now. You can go get the master's through U of O, but so I guess, I mean, missed opportunity wasn't really an opportunity at that point to do it, but still crosses my mind. I mean, the program's still available to get a master's in it, and who knows,
Yeah.
maybe I'll enter that program and kind of switch, fields again. But I would say that's what comes to mind.
Just to think about going back to school for masters, this sounds exhausting. So
Exactly. So that's what keeps me from doing it. But
yeah, because a couple years, I want to say maybe this is like 2017, 2018 or something like that, where I was my brother was involved with the UO Alumni Association, and he had a fundraiser or a kind of event at the product school in downtown Portland. And I just remember going there. I was like, this is insane. I was like, this was not here. like
Right.
5 prior years at that point. And now people can take a class to learn more from like people at Nike, people at Intel or whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
you think you could have made a run in the product? Was it product management? Is that
Yeah, like sports product management.
sports
So,
product management?
yeah, footwear, apparel. Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that always interested me, of course. But just didn't. Yeah, at that time, it wasn't available. Right. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to do sports marketing per se, but yeah, now the program. So again, I felt like I remember the lady first time she was introduced and it came into our class, and at that point that was the first sports product class that they offered. She said, "Oh, we're starting this program. If you guys could be, one of the first classes." And at that point, I kind of already had a career path, if you will, that I had planned out. But yeah, that always interested me. I felt like, oh man, maybe I was, a couple of years too early or whatever. But I'm sure a lot of folks have taken advantage of it now.
Yeah. So how did you find economics?
Yeah, man. I mean, I did start in the business major,
Mm-hmm.
and really it was just a matter of kind of at that point I saw the trajectory of finishing that major, the business major, is going to take me a little bit longer. So I was like, hey, like not that economics was a step back by any means. It was just a matter of, hey, this also really interests me. Kind of macro views of the economy always interested me. So it kind of seamlessly work together. Certainly some tougher courses, to get through, but yeah, it's kind of a smooth transition, kind of, economics, business in some way go hand in hand. But yeah.
Yeah, and that whole idea of like it'll take me a little bit longer because that you said it'll take you a little longer to finish college.
Mm-hmm.
I God, it took me about 5 years to finish college, which
Mm-hmm.
again doesn't feel great to say, but it's like
Yeah,
you got it done, man. That's
exactly.
better. That's better than not getting it done. And
Exactly.
so if you would have let's say a hypothetical, like let's say you would have done that and then just ultimately like I've spent like 6 years of my life in college. I don't know if I want to finish this. How do you think your parents would have reacted? Because you said school is such a high priority in
Mm-hmm.
the Corbin house.
Right. I think, my parents look at it as, like you just said, whether I finished or not, right? The time it took, I mean, ultimately they weren't paying for it. So, they weren't worried on that end, but it's just a matter, like you mentioned, just finishing it, getting the job done, getting the piece of paper, as we say, and
Mm-hmm.
moving on, is most important to them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So the economics. I remember trying. I did a couple classes. Dude, that
Mm-hmm.
tough. That stuff is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you combine some of the social aspects of economics with some of the math part, it kind of like, it kind of all fit together. And yeah, it really was the math, which was the hardest part, but
Yeah.
somehow got through it.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, little Timmy wants has 3 apples and little John has 3 apples, but then Big John wants to buy 6 apples. What do? It's like, what?
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Can we get a real world?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. So it was, got through it. That's all I can say. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so in our talks leading up to this interview, um, so you had a fear of failure when it comes to something that you've been working on to kind of beat or just like become better at. Can you talk to me about that process? Because even with schooling, that's usually like the big determining factor because it can go longer than planned. I mean, another thing is like I'm still paying off school. That's a long con, right? That's a long, not a long con, but long game right there.
Right.
How did you work through your fear of failure? I mean, thinking to your life at that point of like you just finished college and
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be paralyzing, right? Not wanting to fail. And what I realized, and just simply with age and experience, is that just the learning moments, right? I mean, of course, you hope any mistake you're making is not too detrimental to you, but ultimately you have to fail, and it really builds character in a lot of ways. But how I got through that, certainly just seeing examples out there, people who I thought highly of, right, and seeing them fail at certain points just helped me remember that, hey, no one's perfect, right? We're all trying to work through this game called life, and really the idea I thought the sooner you fail at something, the sooner you can learn from it. And still, I have to fight through that today. Of course, wanting to always do my best and be the best and quote unquote be perfect, but realizing that that's obviously never going to happen. That can do more harm to you trying to be perfect than actually failing. So it comes with just experience.
Yeah. And I just remember even most recently, so I interviewed, do you remember Nick Newcomb?
Oh yeah, I do. Yep.
I interviewed him in person, and I was like, okay, leading up to that, I was like, okay, I got some good like routines down, and then next thing you know, my camera starts failing. It says it's full, and then next thing you know, I don't know if like let's say my microphone wasn't connected. So like I tend to dwell on those failures maybe a little bit longer than really should. How did you overcome? Let's use the example of like you failed a quiz in economics. How long do you dwell on that? How long, and how do you kind of work yourself out of that hole?
Right. I think it was just understanding that, life is going to move forward, right? I'm going to have that next quiz, that next test, and, whether it be in life or literally in the classroom will come. And, no one's sitting there feeling bad for me. You know what I mean? I can sit there and mope all I want, but no one's going to go in there and take the test for me or do what I need to do to put myself in a better position. So kind of, it's sheer will, you know what I mean? Understanding that I think the larger picture, failure was not an option, right? Of course, you can fail in between those times, but overall, just wanting to be more or less successful kind of kept me going. Understanding that, in the perspective that, hey, it may be one quiz, it may be, whatever, maybe one test here or there, but there's always a next opportunity. So you hope, and I think that's what kept me going.
Yeah, and you seem to always find success too, which is very impressive, because just looking at your history of working at Key Bank and also TD Ameritrade, where within like let's say about a year into those companies, you reached a manager type role. It's like, whoa, dude. It's like, man, it just said like to me, and when I saw that, I was like, this guy knows how to work, this guy knows how to learn quickly, and this guy knows how to apply what he learns quickly. Now, when you saw yourself, because that growth of like, oh, I went from like stage 1 to like stage 3, this feels awesome. What was a moment, do you remember? I think prior to your role now, you were at TD recently. Before that, while you're at TD, do you remember a moment where you're like, oh, I'm like, these words that mean something forward to me earlier, now I'm like using them in everyday conversation, this feels great. Do you remember a moment like that?
Absolutely. I think that, part of the first thing I had to do to stay employed there was take, my Series 7, right? So the test itself, the exam, to be licensed in the industry. I was like, okay, I'm putting this all into practice, right? That's why I was learning those things, and here it comes. And that even the way I studied helped me just do that, study well there. But then even, getting into the role, talking through to whether it be our clients and just hearing, hey, this is real world stuff. This stuff matters. It's actual dollars that we're working with here that are important to people. It does put a sense of urgency in you, and it was cool.
I know it's hard not to like keep it very general, but also like wanting to get too specific, because
right.
it's hard, because granted you're not with the company more, but it's like, oh, because I just remember like there are conversations where like with my work, I'm like, as a front desk person, I'm slowly taking on more. And then when I saw like my conversations with clients, where you went from like 5 to 10 minutes to like 10 to 20, I'm just like, oh my God, I could survive.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I definitely surprised myself at points with, I guess the term is how much I did know, right? You think about, classroom learning to, now in the real world, and you feel sometimes like, I don't know enough, or I can't do enough. You kind of can have those feelings. But I mean, what I've learned is that, most people don't know a whole lot, you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to in finance. I just found myself being the educator, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Like I know more than maybe I thought I did, and so that obviously boosts confidence and helps you just want to learn more, right? I just kind of made me thirsty for more knowledge at that point, just to be an expert in the field, if you will, eventually.
Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Adelsheim Vineyards. Adelsheim is a winery located in the Pacific Northwest since 1971. Founders David and Ginny Adelsheim opened up the vineyards with the goal to create world-class wine at the Chehala Mountains. Adelsheim has worked with companies like the Growing Gardens, One Barrel, the Portland Trailblazers, and now the Keoni Chats podcast show. It's anytime I do these recordings, it's just so much fun to say that this company wants to give the podcast show a reason and wants to give the fans of the show a good reason to try out some of their items, some of their products at not a wallet breaking price. So thank you to Adelsheim and those actually Emily McMullen, if you remember her from a couple episodes ago. Thank you to her for getting all this established. So if you would like to try some of Adelsheim's wine, go to adelsheim.com, ADELSHEIM.com, and click the shop button on the top right-hand corner, I believe, and scroll around, create a cart, throw in some rosé, throw in some Pinot Noir, throw in some Chardonnay, and maybe throw in something from the merchandise section. But before you check out, use the discount code Grand Cru, GRANDCRU, for 20% off your total purchase. That is phenomenal. Thank you so much thank you to Emily and the folks at Adelsheim for getting this whole deal together for those fans of the Keoni Chats podcast show to check out. So you must be 21 years and over to purchase any alcohol from Adelsheim. But if you want to use a discount code for any merchandise, I believe I have some aprons or some bottle openers. By all means, go on. Please proceed. So, and everyone, please enjoy responsibly. I found this out about myself is that, my mom, she instilled in me to never say like I don't know. Instead, say like I will find the answer. Now, for you, when it comes to being in these managerial roles at KeyBank or TD Ameritrade, how do you respond when someone does ask you a question you don't know the answer to? Like, how do you kind of manage that and not make them feel like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing? Because I know I've had that many times, and
Yeah.
it's not great.
Right. Yeah, it isn't. At the end of the day, you want to always be, or come off as the expert. But reality is that, humans, no one knows everything. Sometimes, at that point, maybe I blame it on my youth or in a way, but, hey, I'm 23 or whatever it may be. I don't know. I shouldn't know this stuff. But what I learned, and someone told it to me at one point, just honesty, right? Just saying, hey, I don't know that, but like you just mentioned, I will go find that answer for you. And certainly a client seeing you go find the answer and then coming back with the answer, that can be more of proving who you are and why they should work with you or whatnot than you trying to fumble over something and you don't, and they can sense the insecurity in your answer or whatever. I've noticed in terms of relationships with clients that hurts you more if you try to just, kind of bulldoze through it and not really be honest with them. So,
yeah. And I know I'm starting to learn to utilize the email and the voicemail. So it feels good. We're like, let me email you back your answer. Give me a couple, like an hour or so. And they're like, sure. And they get back like, oh, that was fast. I was like, good job, Keoni.
Right. So yeah, follow up is huge, right? It makes, it's put trust in people when you follow up.
Yeah. So tell me again, I want to talk a little bit more about your financial life that you've been living by asking, how did personal capital come about? What was who were the other brain trusts to kind of get this whole thing going?
Yeah. So Personal Capital is a registered investment advisory firm, independent firm, full fiduciary. So actually, and maybe you caught it or not, but I was actually at Fisher Investments prior to Personal Capital. Okay. So Fisher is larger than Personal Capital, but does the same exact thing. And so actually, the folks who started Personal Capital came from Fisher Investments. So it's kind of that, it's obviously we're competitors, but there's a little bit of that synergy there in the way that the models are certainly the same. We deliver the same service, right? Portfolio management, financial planning for, everyday retail investors. So it's a matter of building, my book, introducing what we do, for clients. We have a free dashboard is kind of how we started. And that's really what attracted me to Personal Capital is the technology. Other places I was working, not as much technology. And so that's at the core of what Personal Capital does. And again, we offer the free dashboard. Then we say, hey, we'll review your investments for you, give you free feedback as well, and then we'll show you what it looks like to work with us. And so that really, again, that builds trust along the way that, hey, we're doing this for free. We're not looking for anything except, hey, just a decision on whether you want to work with us or not. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay. So have you encountered anyone that, because there are a few things working against you, again, your age, has anyone
Mhm.
just kind of been like, this guy seems very young. I don't know if, what he says is like fully, I don't know if it's like, I don't want to like call you a liar, but it's like, oh, I don't know if
Yeah.
some people just like question some of your advice just because of, your age. Have you encountered that, or are you just kind of like, maybe just happens in the back end that you just don't see?
No, absolutely. Directly have encountered that
Yeah.
quite a bit. I think, my profile, if you will, is out there, right? You can go look up who I am and my experience and see that, I've been in the industry for as long as I have. So people can definitely gauge my age from that. But I've had clients just directly ask me, how old am I? Oh, you're old, or you're young enough to be my grandson and things like that. And it's like, yeah, okay, I get that. But you're right. I mean, it is about, certainly have to have a low level of expertise to gain their trust. But yeah, and also we're working with clients who, do have a lot of wealth and they care about who's going to be taking care of that for them, and as they should. But also I give them the feedback that certainly, it's not just me at the firm, right? So I
Sure.
have other experts to lean on, and so that helps kind of bridge the gap in terms of them understanding, okay, I'm not just trusting everything with this one guy, even though whether they, believe that or not. But yeah, I even the other day had a client who multimillionaire who she's well into her 90s and was like, hey, I want someone who's 60 who's seen different market cycles and has seen different things. I was like, yeah, well, but I also studied the stuff. I understand what happened, and so just not getting defensive, right?
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from. If I were to on the other end think about my life savings being managed by someone who hasn't been around that long, hasn't
Hmm.
seen different challenges in the market, then yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a little bit, hesitant. So I just, understanding there is important.
Yeah, I remember there was one client. I said, "Oh, our valuation guy, he's going to help you out. He's done a lot. I've helped balance his calendar out, and he's has a lot of repetitions." He's like, and then she said, "No, I want someone that's been there for at least like 3 or 4 years." I'm like, "Okay, all right."
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then as soon as I hang up the phone, I'm like, "Wow, we're fine. We know, our team knows what we're doing."
Right.
And then just making sure it's like, you know, not vocalized to them. It's like, you
Yeah.
know, we're fine. We know what we're doing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then again, also with you and I both being in the financial field, I've also seen that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the people in that field that maybe are looking to like retire or do whatever they want to do, get their
Mm-hmm.
books looked at, are of an older generation, also not a minority. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's a majority. Why am I trying to fluff it up? It's a lot of white guys. So
Yeah,
with
I'm with you.
with us being in the minority, it's definitely different to when I talk to people, and obviously they can't see my face, but for you, they see you. They're either like talking to you on Zoom or
Mm-hmm.
in person. Um, have you encountered anything that does affect your reputation or your rep because that the fact you're a minority? I know it's kind of a weird transition, but
Oh no, not at all. I think it's an important thing that is not really talked about enough. You know what I mean? That yeah, I think in all the phases of my career, it's kind of been always in the back of my mind, right?
mhm,
Did this person say no for reasons other than, what I've said or what I can do? Um, so, I mean, I must admit, nothing's been overtly, what do you want to call it?
yeah,
Racist, I guess,
yeah,
nothing, no one's ever told me, oh, I'm not going to work with you because of, who you are. But there are some instances where you can feel it, and I think, we're all smart enough and you can feel it where it's coming from. So yeah, no, I'm definitely thinking about that often. Hey, did I lose that deal because of something I can't control, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
it's always there. I think that, at the same time, it is becoming better, right? I think folks it is, getting better, but still there, right? And so it does, I think about it, how much it has affected me. I don't think I can quantify it necessarily, but yeah, again, to your point, I've definitely felt it.
I'm not in the position you are, where you are in a higher up position. It's like, people should notice your accolades more than what they see with their eyes. So that's that's gotta be tough, man. That's gotta be tough.
Yeah, not easy, I think, but I just think about, certainly my ancestors, all they went through to get me, to allow me to be here, to do what I do. That's what keeps me going. You know what I mean? Who am I to complain necessarily about where I'm at? So, yeah, it is unfortunate. I think that, yeah, it definitely comes more or less from the older generations, but,
Yeah.
what can we do? Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you keep your cool with that? Because I can just imagine myself just being like, I know what I'm doing. Again, I know what I'm doing. I've done this for X amount of years. If you don't want to go to me, fine, but just go to me for different reasons than what I think it is.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I think there certainly is a balance between, kind of, I guess the word is taking it versus like putting my foot in the ground and saying, hey, I actually don't need your business. You know what I mean? I'd rather, if you're going to act that
Sure.
way, we don't have to work together. And,
Yeah.
I've done that before for maybe other reasons, just a person's being rude and, the why they're being rude, maybe it is because of that. But, so yeah, it's just a matter of knowing that, like you said, I mean, reputation is huge and really whatever field you're in. So, I can't ruin that by, one person who, feels and acts a certain way. It's been tough, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's been some more, contentious conversations where I have to hone it in and make sure I'm, not overstepping any boundaries. But yeah, knowing that, hey, it's just one deal or one person outside of the, a lot that I do deal with. So
Yeah, it's just a one bad egg, one rotten apple, whatever metaphor you want to apply to it.
all right.
How did it feel becoming a VP? That's
Yeah.
that's kind of insane, especially at our age, where we're either 30 or approaching 30, where it's like, oh, I'm a vice president. I'm like, shut up, man. No, you're not.
It's funny you say it that way because I actually had it when I did get the role. They're like, they gave me the title, and I was like, oh, is that right? Does that actually come with the title? And yeah, man, I think that, what I've realized, and many people who are, are in leadership, not only at my company but beyond, like, you never stop. The title, yeah, is one thing, but you never stop really doing the basics of what you've always done. You know what I mean? I think that's, ultimately what got you there. So, I even looked at it within my company, our president, he's now the president. Even he talked about, I really admired the way he approached it. He just still wants to be a man of the people, if you will. Like, hey, I may have this title, but you can come to me for anything and talk through anything. So I always see that and just know that, yeah, the paper may say one thing, but I still need to be who I am and what got me there, I guess. So, but nonetheless, yeah, there are responsibilities that are different, but they're good responsibilities. So
I know there are times where, like, I'm working with the president and founder, or the founder and owner, I should say, and then there are times I'm working with the CEO, but just like, I just know them by their first names. It's just like, oh,
right.
I worked with this guy, I worked with this guy, and then there are times where I sit down, I'm like, holy crap, I just worked with the president. Whoa, whoa, man.
Right.
I know it's. Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
Not really, actually. I know it's a great show. People love it, but I haven't really watched it.
There's a scene where a guy who's like kind of just like the architect, he has the opportunity to become like a project manager and kind of oversee people, or stay as a like an architect, or just kind of someone with a nose in the blueprints. And then the scene is like he's like partying up with people, having a great time. And then when he becomes like a project manager, it's kind of like two timelines kind of split up. He becomes a
Okay.
manager, and then everyone's just kind of like shy to talk to, shy to like continue the conversations around him. They're like, oh, Kevin's coming in, guys, be quiet, shut up.
Got it.
Did you ever feel like that was something you had encountered, where like people were acting differently with you because of your role?
That's a good question. maybe not noticeably. I always try to, do just that, like make people feel comfortable, knowing that for whatever reason they may not. So I try to do that at the core of every interaction I have. I guess maybe if it did happen, I didn't notice it. You know what I mean? Maybe a change in behavior, but again, it's all still relatively new for me. It's only been since December, so
True. True.
maybe not yet. So.
So I mean this is just again fantastic that someone I grew up with and someone that I've at one time was on the gridiron with and walked same halls with is the VP of personal capital. I'm just like, there you go, man. There you go. How'd you celebrate?
Geez, I went right into working, man. The work just began at that point. It wasn't really a celebration, I must admit. It was like, hey, the work now begins. I have, certain production, quotas I want to meet and grow in the business. So it really just started. I think that, I tucked away to, I guess, Hawaii, got away for a little bit, understanding that, hey, that, you do need to separate, work-life balance. And so maybe that was a little bit of celebration, if you will.
I mean, you've done some traveling. You got Hawaii, you have New York, you have Puerto Nuevo, Baja California, and Mexico. And, you've done some adventuring. What would you say most recently is, like, again, let's say recently within the last like 5 years, was your favorite place to go?
Man, that is a tough question because you get a little something everywhere, right? That's true, that you love and hold on to. I mean, yeah, you mentioned New York. New York has my heart. I mean, that's a city where you go, the concrete jungle. You feel like, hey, you've got to grind every time you're there. Then you have the opposite, the relaxation of Hawaii and parts of Mexico. But again, everything's a little bit different. I think, most recently, going to Hawaii a few times has been, I mean, eye-opening, incredible experience. Just getting, I love being near the ocean wherever I may be. Part of what drew me to San Diego as well. But everything has a little something different, I would say. That is a tough question, but I appreciate it.
That's why I put a time frame. I don't want to be like of all time. That just sounds impossible to answer. Talk to me about San Diego. How was that? Because you got there after college, correct?
Yeah, it was like a couple of years after college. I think I was 24 when I moved there. I mean, it was great. 4 years. Exactly 4 years of my life. Right before I moved, it's kind of a thing. Okay, do I move to LA or do I move to San Diego? Spent a lot of time in LA and not so much in San Diego prior to that. But then when I did kind of do my core visit and like to see if I wanted to move, I was like, why wouldn't I move here? I mean, LA, has all the, things it has, but it's great. I mean, like I said, like the ocean is at, my core. I love being close to the ocean, getting out in the water, different water sports, food, people, sun, are important to me. So it was a good experience. One that, always tugs on me. Hey, could I see myself moving back? Of course I can see myself, but there's this other, now kind of decisions I'd have to make to do that. But man, it's a good time.
Did you know anyone down there prior to your move, or just kind of go down there blind?
No. Oh, well, yeah, it was a little bit blind. I'll put it that way. The interesting thing is, and you may recall this individual. So like the very first, like I drove my car down, from Portland to San Diego with kind of my stuff, and was, going to go to my apartment, and like had to go get a check for my first month's rent or whatever. So I went to the bank, and I go up to the teller and in San Diego, and lo and behold, it's Kevin Eames.
Really?
as my teller. And I don't know. I mean, like you kind of talked about, you kind of lose track of where people are in the world, I guess. And we're kind of like, what the heck, man? Like, what are you doing here? What are you doing? Obviously, he lived there, but I was like, dude, I'm moving here today. Like, I'm getting a check for my like, and it was just kind of like this crazy thing because I knew no one. And like the first day I'm down there, I meet, I run into Kevin, and so after that we hung out a couple times, and I think I'm not sure if he's still down there, but we ended up just kind of things. I meet new people and whatever, and so we didn't hang out as much. But that was kind of an interesting. But outside of that, no, I met everyone new down there. So
Now, what was that experience like of just being in a new city, not knowing anyone? Like, I can just imagine myself doing that. And I'm just like, oh, geez, what do I do first? Like, I guess,
Hmm.
I mean, if we were to do it like 2020 to this year, it would have been like
Yeah,
much
been tough.
harder. But
Right.
you did that way before COVID. What was your first what was your first move to try and meet new people? Because you do seem like you're a friendly guy and you're very outgoing, and so I take it making friends is not hard for you, but just like that first step to making new friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I got really lucky with um, the fact that my coworkers are still, even to this
Mm.
day, like my new coworkers down there, some of my best friends. I couldn't have planned it that way. That was that TD Ameritrade. We're around the same age, and I think they hired kind of in a certain type of person clearly because we had all these similarities, whether it even be through sports or just what we like to do, and yeah, it I couldn't have planned it better because I didn't have to do a lot of searching because they were right there at work. So I mean that's the answer. It was really just through my work I met still some of my best friends. So
Yeah, that's what's been because you and I are on that same wavelength of like if we're in a workplace and there's people we know that we can kind of connect with, we'll just
mhm.
blossom and flourish those friendships, and then realize, oh, I've had this moment where like, oh, I don't have any friends that I've made outside of work, huh?
Yeah, I know it could be like because we did a great job of like not talking about work so much outside of work. I mean, certainly it came up, but and the reality is I ended up living with them. Those guys who I met through work in San Diego. So it's kind of like they're my best friends. But so and then through them you meet other people who are outside of our jobs. So that's kind of how it all came together in terms of kind of getting a friend group down there. And again, still to this day, they're my good friends. So it worked out.
What was the moment in New York that really stole your heart? Because you said that's where your heart's at. How did it steal it?
I mean, I think it may sound weird. I think just feeling so small, like
Mm,
feeling like I don't want to say not important, but I'm not like, like this is the big apple. And I, number one, you can do anything you want, you can be anyone you want, but at the same time, it's like I'm only one person, and I think that kind of really gave me some perspective on life that there are so many people there to interact with and just how my what I can do in my day can affect other people. Just going through the subway, walking around, and hearing different languages being spoke. I think that's probably one of the coolest things about New York is just every day on the street you just hear different languages being spoke and different foods. So that's kind of a long list, but I think it's just a matter of just feeling like so small. And that
yeah.
may sound weird, but yeah.
Yeah, I've gone to New York once, and this was probably I have of a photo. I think it's like 2017, 2018, something like that.
Mhm.
And my brother, he worked for Doc Martens at the time, and he was traveling around the country to go install, I guess, go check on POS systems,
Okay.
the payable systems that people see
Yeah.
when they're checking out like customer service. So basically, he went to different Doc Martens to just check on their systems. And he was in New York. He's like, okay, I'm gonna be here for a week. Come down for the weekend, or come over for the weekend. I'll pay for your ticket. We'll go to an NFL game,
Hmm.
and we will also come with me to do a little bit of my work. I just remember the most frustrating thing was trying to keep up with him as we're walking through Times Square or a little bit of Central Park or whatever that be. And I'm just like, dude, stop. I want to look at these buildings. How was adjusting to the speed of New York?
I mean, the interesting thing is that I was born in Boston, right? So I grew up in Boston, which also is a pretty fast-paced city,
Sure.
right there on the East Coast. So and then two of my sisters lived in New York prior to me, like kind of going back and visiting. So I definitely knew what I was in for. But I still think, when you go, you don't really always know. I think it speeds
Mm,
up even more than you think. It's just that it's so many people. I mean, 18 million people, I believe, in that one city. Uh, that it can be tough. I mean, there's times where I more or less, whether it's in an Airbnb or hotel, you kind of get back to the hotel and it's kind of like, whoa, like you gotta like mentally and physically and emotionally kind of like calm down again, because it
Yeah.
is a lot. Like, you go out there, it's like once like you just feel like you're hustling, bustling, and then not stopping, and it kind of be emotionally draining in a way, but in a good way, right? It's I feel like you mentioned lots to see. Just kind of like making sure you're always, have that recharge time, and really try not to do everything in one day there or something like that, and just kind of burn yourself out. So that could, I remember one time, yeah, I was on a work trip. Technically, we were in Syracuse, which is like 4 hours north of the city, and we drove to the city just to, we got to go while we're here type of thing, and end up getting like super sick, you know what I mean? Just without all that going there, just wears your body. So just, yeah, you got to make time for yourself.
What is it? What do you miss most? Okay, actually, weird one is that trip to New York. You might appreciate as a former football player. Went to go see the Patriots versus the Jets, and I was like,
Okay.
And then when Tom Brady retired, I posted a photo from that day. So I was like, oh, this is cool. But what do you remember why you guys moved out of Boston, or do you what do you miss about it too?
Yeah. So we moved just for, ultimately, it was just for change. I moved when I was 10, right? And moved right into Portland. For change, at that point, yeah, my parents had split up, and so it was a matter of just, hey, it's like my mom wanted something new. And so my aunt and uncle already lived in Portland. And so that's how we even, how it was one of the options. But what I miss, I'd probably say some of the food. I love food in general, and there's different types of food there, of course. In my opinion, a little better Italian food, but outside of that, I think, having an NFL team, right? I mean, we don't have one here in Portland. Having, the sports environment, people in Boston love their sports, as you may know.
True.
Just that kind of environment, and then, of course, I left some of my friends, so that dynamic. But at the same time, I think about it, I don't necessarily want to or need to move back to Boston, but I do miss it. I do want to visit. Of course, I have family there still. So
yeah, it's. I mean, when I became a New England Patriot fan, just as a honest to God, I was a bandwagon fan at first, and then started. I still like them as they lost to the Giants twice in the Super Bowl, in 2 separate Super Bowls. Right. I was like, I feel like I'm validated, but just being like, I didn't realize how much of like there's like a little group of New England Patriot fans within the Oregon area. So I'm like, or I guess Portland, and then there's also a bunch of people that are like either Seattle Seahawks fans or like 49er fans, and it's like I guess that's kind of the nice part about not having an NFL team. You can kind of choose your allegiance.
Oh, exactly. Right. So I never blame anyone from Portland who, likes any team, right? It's like you don't have one. I think, like I said, people want to do the close, just in proximity, but pick who you want, right? So it was tough in San Diego when the year I moved there, we lost the Chargers to LA.
Oh, right.
So that was tough. I mean, because I was like, super excited to now have an NFL team again and go to the game in San Diego, but they moved that same year that I got there. So, whatever.
But now we have a great former Oregon quarterback, tossing the rock. So for the Chargers, so you can live vicariously, with them again.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, Justin's he's gonna do well, man. He already has.
He was the first and probably only non-Patriot jersey I will have.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
I was like, I'll take it.
I like it.
All right, Kevin, as you wrap up, I like to ask people 2 questions out of this packet of 160 hypothetical questions. And I want to check with you first. Are you a history buff at all? Do you like history?
I do. Yeah, my mom taught history. I like to think I know a little bit, but we'll see. You're going to challenge me here.
I will challenge you. There's what 2-hour chunk of history would you want a video of if you could have a video of it? Basically, the wording's a little weird, so let me try it one more time. Okay. What 2-hour chunk of history would you want to own in a video format?
2 hours. Wow, that's an interesting one.
That's also a long time.
2 hours of video, like a whole movie, huh?
Pretty much. And we don't have to be specific on this. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, no. Part of me wants to see some of the Roman Empire, man. I just think like what were like they, we use so much of what they made and created from a technology standpoint that like, and they were, arguably the greatest empire ever. And I got to see it, man. I got to see what they were doing.
Yeah, there was a show on Stars called Spartacus. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah, I didn't tune in to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just I was listening to a podcast where one of the actresses from the show was on, and she was talking about that time there and how like the clothing and the historicalness and just the words, like how they spoke to each other. It was just
Right.
like I just remember watching. I was like, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And for people that know the show, yes, it's also very nudie. There's a lot of nudity. So
what show is that on them?
I'll put it in the description below, guys, so you guys can check it out later. There was like two other ones in about history that I was like, oh, I could ask him, but I don't want to make it too history centric. Kevin, you're a good looking dude. You got like great bone structure, skin looks fantastic. But if you could select the color of your eyes before you were born, what color would you select?
Before I was born, I think that's always interesting because like you still see the same, right? I think it's like a weird thing. Like the color of my eyes really don't matter, but it's like still see. So I don't know, man. I guess it would be. I mean, I get my eyes from my grandpa, so I guess I got to say I'm gonna honor him still and keep him, but
stick with it.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't choose him, so I'll just God given or whatever. But yeah, I think I'll stick just for my grandpa.
And that was actually the first question in a new packet. So in the previous packet, I was starting to like kind of run through them. I was like, some of the questions I was like, I'm okay with. I don't really need to ask this one. But so I was like, you know what? Let's dive into a new packet with my good friend Kevin Corbin.
Appreciate breaking it open with me, man.
So Kevin, where can the people find you on social media?
Yeah, man. Instagram, LinkedIn, I guess if you want to consider that social media. I'm off Twitter. Don't do it anymore. No Snapchat, no Facebook. So it's really just the gram. Kevlar Season, SZN it's Kevlar Season, I should say.
Nice.
KEVLAR SZN. So a little play on words there.
So you've shredded some mountains, you shredded some waves. I don't know why shredded is the verb attached to any board sports, but you have officially you've officially shredded your first podcast episode. How are you feeling, sir?
Oh, great, man. I appreciate you bringing me on. Just feel important, even though it may not be very important, but you made me feel important. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not every day I get to reconnect with you, and just this chance to talk about your life, especially with, again, just the fact that you're doing very well in life. So I wanted to poke and prod.
Absolutely, man. I'm here.
Giant thank you to the guests for coming on and telling their story, and giant thank you to you for sticking around until the end of the episode. If you like what you heard or watched and would like more from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all podcast platforms and YouTube. So like and subscribe there to get notified when new episodes are released. Or if you would like to follow the show on social media and get your notifications that way, you could do so by following KC Media 13 on Instagram and Twitter and Conlu K Media on Facebook. So if you'd like to become a guest, you can email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. Tell me your story. I'd love to talk with you and love to get you on the show. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.